Merci, Excellence et Vice-président du Conseil des droits de l'homme. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, it is an honor to address the Human Rights Council in my capacity as Chair Rapporteur of the Ad hoc Committee on the Elaboration of Complementary Standards to the ICERD. I'm pleased to present the report of the Ad hoc Committee on its 15th session. Since my last briefing to this Council, I am pleased to report that the Ad hoc Committee has continued to make steady progress in advancing its important mandate. The 15th session was held in two segments, pursuant to the Human Rights Council Resolution 57/25. The first segment was convened from 9 to 11 April, and the second from 26 to 30 May 2025. As you are aware, in 2006, this Council took a decisive step in response to the call of the Durban Declaration and Programme of Action by establishing the Ad hoc Committee. It was entrusted with a critical mandate to elaborate, as a matter of priority and necessity, complementary standard in the form of either a convention or additional protocol to the International Convention on the Elimination of all forms of racial discrimination. This step reflected a shared recognition of the need to strengthen our collective efforts against racial discrimination and acknowledged the importance of providing new normative standards at combating all forms of contemporary racism. In 2017, both the General Assembly and the Human Rights Council reaffirmed their commitment to this mandate by requesting that the Chair Rapporteur of the Ad hoc Committee, and I quote, ensure the commencement of the negotiation on the draft additional protocol to the Convention criminalizing acts of a racist and xenophobic nature, end of quote. In this context, during its 15th session, the Ad hoc Committee engaged in substantive discussions with legal experts and received input and precise legal advice regarding the concrete elements of potential draft provisions for a draft additional protocol to the Convention. During the 15th session, building upon the work of previous sessions, the Ad hoc Committee reached consensus in principle that the draft additional protocol should address specific conducts outlined in Article 4 of the ICERD. The committee considered proposed definition for the offenses of hate speech and hate crimes and explored various options for addressing the issue of participation in organizations that incite racial discrimination. The Ad hoc Committee emphasized that criminalization should be reserved for serious cases and expressed a preference for a holistic strategy to combat racial discrimination. While Article 4 of the Convention provides for certain conducts to be declared offenses punishable by law, other provisions put forward a comprehensive approach, one that includes preventive measures, education and awareness raising, as well as remedial mechanisms. In addition, the Ad hoc Committee examined concrete elements of draft provisions aimed at preventing and prohibiting xenophobia and xenophobic discrimination, as well as racial profiling and its intersection with artificial intelligence. It further considered draft definitions for xenophobia, xenophobic discrimination, and racial profiling. The Ad hoc Committee, with the support of the legal experts, aims to continue elaborating and discussing concrete elements and draft provisions of the draft additional protocol during its 16th session next year. To this end, it has requested further input on two key areas of discussion. First, approaches to addressing discrimination on the basis of religion or belief within the draft additional protocol, taking into account the intersectionality of various forms of discrimination, including as aggravating factors. Second, measures to address acts of a racist and xenophobic nature committed online and in cyberspace, including the use of digital tools, artificial intelligence, and emerging technologies, as well as states' obligation and liability of individuals and legal entities. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, allow me to highlight that during its 15th session, the Ad hoc Committee held a special commemorative event to mark the 60th anniversary of the adoption of the I-CERT. This event formed part of the year-long campaign launched on 21st March 2025 by the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. It offered an opportunity to reflect on the Convention's achievement, assess the current global status of racial discrimination, and consider how complementary standards can strengthen the impact of the Convention in addressing contemporary forms of racism and racial discrimination. Despite challenges, the ad hoc committee achieved meaningful progress, reaffirming the importance of our collective efforts towards the elaboration of an additional protocol to the Convention criminalizing acts of a racist and xenophobic nature. For the first time, the committee engaged in substantive discussion on draft provisions defining key offenses, including hate speech and hate crimes, and began considering definition for racial profiling, xenophobia, and xenophobic discrimination. These preliminary discussions mark a significant step forward in advancing the committee's mandate. These efforts are aimed at paving the way for the commencement of negotiation on a draft additional protocol to the Convention, as mandated by the Human Rights Council and the General Assembly. The ad hoc committee remains committed to addressing existing legal gaps through the development of a modern, high-quality instrument that ensures effective protection against racial discrimination in all its forms and manifestations. Let me reiterate that the elaboration of complementary standard is not only a legal necessity, but also a moral imperative. It is essential to building a more comprehensive and effective international framework to combat racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I was encouraged to see that representatives of permanent mission and civil society organizations continue to engage with the ad hoc committee in a spirit of cooperation and constructive dialogue. I deeply appreciate the collaborative approach and the willingness to compromise during the 15th session. While differences remain within the committee, there is a strong and shared commitment to the fight against racism. As we look ahead to the 16th session, I count on all delegation and participants to engage substantively and constructively as they have been doing so far. Your continued dedication is essential to advancing our common goal of strengthening the international legal framework to combat racial discrimination in all its forms. In conclusion, let me reiterate that the work of the ad hoc committee remains as relevant today as it was at its inception, if not more so. We must continue to advance this mandate with determination and unity, guided by the principles of equality, justice, and human dignity, and I thank you for your attention.